Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Win with Heather Havenwood. I have someone very excited on the line today, so listen up. This is all about you and your health and being super healthy. So listen up. I'm going to tell you who my guest is today. My guest is Wade T. Lightheart, host of the Awesome Health Podcast, and is a 3-time all-natural bodybuilding champion, advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute, and director of education at BiOptimizers Nutrition, one of the world's most innovative nutraceutical supplement companies. He is also the author of several books, including the best-selling book, Staying Alive in a Toxic World, and the Wealthy Backpacker. I love that. The Awesome Health Podcast is a big part of his mission to help others fix their digestive and transform their health with the daily practice of positive principles, rituals, and optimizers. Welcome, Wade.
Great to be here. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, this is going to be super awesome. So everyone, most of you know, if you've been listening to me for a while, I started a supplement company back in 2015, and I am a huge anti-aging, anti-pharmaceutical company kind of gal, right? And so I'm super excited to have you on the line, Wade, because I think health is the most important part truly of life, because I know so many entrepreneurs who have started down a path of building a business and huge success, and then bam, something happens and like their health takes them out. In fact, I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas today, and I wanted to share with you, and we can kind of start this path, is that I'm sitting in Austin, Texas today in this beautiful condo, and two of my neighbors, on either side of me, no kidding, women not married in early 40s, late 30s, both of them in the last 24 months have had double mastectomies and breast cancer. That freaks me out because I'm 42. Okay, so I'm about the same age as them, not married, no kids. And both of them, and I'm like, is it in the water? What is going on? And I think it's happening more and more and more today. And it freaks me out as someone who is extremely health conscious. So I kind of want to start today with just, one, I wanted you to start, but who are you and why did you create this business that you did? But then I really want to move into the toxicity of today's world.
Well, great. Thanks. It's a lot. It's a lot of territory to cover, but I think it's relative and important. So, and something I'm very passionate about. I mean, I guess I got started on my whole health journey way back when I was 15, and 3 interesting things happened to me back then. Number one, my parents moved to an extremely rural place, 5 miles to my nearest neighbor. Telephone poles ended at the door. It was this beautiful resort that they were the caretakers of, but at 15 years old, not the place I wanted to be. Second thing, my sister at the time was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is a form of lymphoma cancer, cancer of the lymph nodes, if you will. And I watched over the next 4 years as she went through the medical model with all the chemo and radiation and the drugs and all that stuff before she died a very untimely death at 22 years old. So those things had some deep impacts that I really didn't fully understand maybe till 10 years later. Third thing that happened is just at the time she got sick, she handed me a bodybuilding magazine with Troy Zuclato on the cover, Mr. California, I can remember it still today, and 2 beautiful girls on the cover. And of course, 15 years old, driven mad with testosterone. I'm thinking, I need these muscles, and this guy looks healthy and physically fit. And, I had to deal with my sister not having health, who went from a vital, strong athlete, what you would think would be fine. And all of a sudden I realized that, number one, health is not a guarantee. And I learned that really early. And then with my sister's death, I was like, wow, I really got to figure this stuff out. And that launched me into a career. I studied exercise physiology at the University of New Brunswick, and then I started to mentor under people who were producing great results, and that led me into a bodybuilding career, thinking, like a lot of people do, that if I'm fit or I have muscles or a low body fat percentage or I watch what I eat or that sort of stuff, that constitutes health. And I made a critical error, but I was at least somewhat on the right path. That culminated in 2003 with a trip to the Mr. Universe contest. I'm one of the only vegetarians to ever compete in that contest. And after that contest, though, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. So I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. And I was like, how does this happen? And I've been training for 16 years. I got the best coach in the world. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And my body is broken down. And
want to stop for you for a
yeah,
second because I can really relate to this. Okay, I didn't know that. First, what y'all need to know if you're not familiar with the Olympian in the bodybuilding world, the fact that you're a vegetarian, just explain to the audience, the fact that you're a vegetarian in that world and we're even competing is remarkable. Okay. Right. It's just truly remarkable, mainly because of what the diet you're fed or told is a heavy protein. Right. I remember my show, my NPC figure show when I age 40, which was in 2015, summer 2015. I remember the time my boyfriend / also my trainer, I said, well, I want to go vegan. He's like, you can't, a vegetarian, you can't do that and be bodybuilding. Like, it's just impossible. He was like, no, right? So first of all, I want the audience to understand the fact that you were even on the stage, right? Even on the stage at that level, being a vegetarian is pretty remarkable. Number two, I experienced the same thing, and other people have too. What I call the blow up, where you like lean. You look amazing for that 24-hour period.
Yeah, 24 hours and it's done.
1 second, and then all of a sudden you see the same people 2 months later and you see their stage picture, you see them, you're like, what happened? And that's when, for me, and I'm curious I started to realize, for me, it was a little bit an unhealthy lifestyle. But I want to see what happened to you. What was your experience?
It's exactly the same, which is, it comes with the sport. And the reality is I was fortunate enough that I met a medical doctor who had been diagnosed with liver disease, and he had colon cancer and was sent to die, and he rebuilt himself. And I met this guy, and this guy was like super vital, amazing. Like, it was like one of these moments like, oh, the angels singing, all that. It was like amazing guy. And I met him. I said, dude, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm following all the things. I'm doing all this stuff and do this. And he says, wait, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. You haven't learned to build the body from the inside out. Oh, wow. And I was just like, okay. Now keep in mind, this guy was, in his 70s at least. And he was probably the most vital, energetic person I've ever met in my life, and super hyper aware. And he was just like, you could never imagine this guy was ever sick. You couldn't even believe he was that age. I was like, okay, whatever you're doing, right, it's working, and whatever I'm doing right now isn't. So I became a student of him, and he mentored me, and he taught me about the number one component of health is your digestion. And working, making sure that you had enough enzymes, making sure that you had the right probiotics, make sure that you were eliminating the waste. And he says, when you're on these high protein diets or in these performance-based diets, which are geared to make you look a certain way for a period of time, you're actually setting yourself up by accelerating your metabolism, your metabolic breakdown, the damaging free radical damage. You're actually increasing the aging process. And if you look at most bodybuilders per se, oftentimes they have fantastic physiques, but if you look at the face, it looks quite old. And well, why is that? And that is some of the oxidative damage from that performance-based diet. So I realized that there is a difference between fitness and health at that moment. Now, it took me to get to the Mr. Universe contest to do that. I don't recommend that for other people. What I'm saying is those principles rebuilt my house. I was able to rebuild my health. I followed everything he did. 6 months later, I looked fantastic. I felt fantastic. I opened a clinic in Vancouver, Canada, called Yaletown Holistics, and I started consulting people, help people come in with all sorts of problems. And I realized that they all had the same problem. The same problem was they weren't absorbing and utilizing the food they were eating, and they weren't getting the toxins and the waste product out of their system. And it was only a matter of time before they ended up like me. So by essentially applying the same principles to these people, they started to transform their health. And then that just kind of snowballed. And then people were coming to me that were sick from all these different conditions. And I'm like, I don't know. Well, let's just try this. And it's been on a runaway freight train for 15 years.
15 years. Well, first of all, this is pretty impressive. And you're talking, I mean, it's synergistic that I met you and having this conversation, because I remember about 6 months ago when I started getting back into the bodybuilding, because I felt like that's what I had to do, because it's kind of what I know. my trainer, and she's no longer my trainer, but she said it on, I think she said it to me on accident. She didn't mean to say it, like coaching me. She just kind of said it, and I can't get it out of my head. She's like, well, bodybuilding is not the most healthiest thing to do. And then she just, whatever she said next, I don't remember. And I thought, yeah, it's not. It's just like, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And even my coach at the time, because I said to her, well, I'm thinking about going back into bodybuilding. She said, don't you remember how sick you were? And I'm like, but I look so great. She's like, yeah. And do you remember how sick you were? Do you remember? Let me remind you of everything you told me that was going on in your body. And it is a distinction between fitness and health. Healthy and fit. They are very different. And also there's like looking good
cosmetic fitness, I call it.
Right. Cosmetic fitness is very different, I think. So this is a really great conversation. So if someone's listening, obviously they're probably not bodybuilders and they may not know what we're talking about, but let's talk about what you discovered healthy is, and like actually being healthy from the inside out.
Well, first and foremost, most people assume, and we celebrate athletes in all different disciplines and sports, or people who look a certain way, whether it's the fashion industry, whether it's the fitness industry, whether it's sports. And we assume that if you have a six pack or you have a nice shapely butt, that you're healthy. And well, that may be true. It may also be not true. In fact, a lot of people use a lot of chemical agents. They use a lot of drugs. They use diets that don't support it. They will help them get lean, but they won't help them get healthy. And oftentimes, as you experience, every person has felt tired, de-energized, brain fog in the mornings, achy joints, all this sort of stuff that people experience. And like, who wants to experience that? And so that's what I went through. And it was just, everybody said, well, that's what you need to do on a diet. It took me 4 years to figure it out. I followed these practices, changed my diet, and literally 4 years later, I was able to win all these contests, felt great, didn't have the blow up, never had that problem, and have never stopped since. So now I'm in my mid 40s. I feel great, and I jumped on the scale this morning, and I'm literally 4 pounds over my contest weight over 10 years ago.
Wow, that's huge. Again, I'm going to go back to people to understand how that works. There's when you're doing contests, you do this kind of building up the muscle, and then you're dropping the weight, water and fat, just to look good for that 35 seconds or whatever. It feels like 35 seconds. Those 60 seconds you're on stage and you're all tanned up, and then they throw you to the side, and so I remember my weight too. And it's funny because if you feel like, for me, I feel like I always want to look at that, keep looking that way, but it's not, I don't know, it's not realistic. At least I don't think it is. I'm still dealing with it right now. I'm still dealing with, I'm looking at a scale all the time, making sure that I need to be a certain way, because I keep putting myself up against myself. How I looked 3 years ago on that second, and that moment on that stage, which is challenging. So this is interesting. This is an interesting conversation. So how did you transition that? I mean, what are you on a vegan diet now? Are you vegetarian now? Could you give us a gist of that?
Yeah. One of the things I do dislike is all labels, and I'm not a vigilante vegetarian, and this is not a show about vegetarianism, but I haven't eaten any meat since 2001. I do have eggs occasionally, and I do have cheese occasionally on my refeed days, as I call them. So if I'm having some cheese or something like that, it's no big deal. So I like to think of it more of a plant-based flexitarian, and that I'm not rigid about what I'm doing. I'm not, telling everybody else to do it. But what I do along with it is I ensure that my digestive system works perfectly all the time. And that's the difference. It's not whether you're a meat eater or a plant eater, or you're on the ketogenic diet or an intermittent fasting or on a high carb diet, or whatever the diet fad of the day is. Because they did kind of get recycled. You've been around long as I have. You just see they just get recycled with a new name and someone else says, and they build all this research that so supports it. But the bottom line is
so true. Diets
don't work. They don't work because if it worked, they wouldn't need to keep inventing new ones. So I look at what is your eating plan, and then how are you able to absorb and utilize that food. And so sometimes people will gravitate to one diet or another because they already have a compromised digestive system and they don't know it. So when they get on a diet that's restrictive or limited, all of a sudden they feel all these benefits and they associate the benefits with the diet. It's not the diet, it's that this diet actually worked with their compromised system. So my route was, what's compromising the system? What makes your digestive system work? And can you make a diet work for anybody, anytime, anywhere, any background, any genetics, any epigenetics, all that sort of stuff? And that was my goal. I said, I wanted to be able to people to come in and say, I want to eat this kind of diet. Can I do it? And how do I do it? And I said, it's as simple as rebuilding your digestive system, because it's not what you put in your mouth. It's because it's a single canal from mouth to anus. Right. The food is in the tube. It's not in your cells. It's not in your body where you need it. And your ability to absorb, utilize those nutrients that you eat is critical, and to eliminate the waste. And that's where most people run into problems. I mean, right now, it's the 5th leading cause of death is digestive related illnesses. And what most people don't realize, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes are all related to diet. 90% of the illnesses that people are suffering from today in America, according to the Surgeon General, are lifestyle related. And the lifestyle that we eat is we eat foods that we can't digest and utilize, and we can't eliminate the toxic waste things. And that's what started the book, and that's what started the message and the speaking, and then eventually the company, because I had to make sure I had the right products, because you know how companies are. You got to make sure you get the right thing. So I was like, the only way I could trust it was to build it piece by piece myself.
And that's where you're at now with BiOptimizers Nutrition, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've been around now for since 2004. That's when we started the company, right after that meltdown, because I was like determined. And originally we started just serving the bodybuilding market,
right?
And then all of a sudden we started fixing all these other conditions, and eventually we changed our focus and said, "Hey, we fix digestion. If you got digestive issues, we fix it."
Everyone's got digestive issues.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Like it's they don't want to talk about it, but it really is the key. Now I want to tell everybody right now, they can go to healthywithheather.com. I'm going to spell that healthy, HEALTHY, with Heather, HEATHER, AKA me. Okay, don't know if you're listening to Heather Havenwood. Check that out, and it's going to show you what we're talking about. He has many products. One of the products you're going to see is the probiotics. It's all about digestive, and there's a video on there that, by the way, I watched about 10 minutes before I ate some steak, and there's a video in there, which I think is really powerful, by the way, Ray, is where he had this, he has some steak, and he puts in 3 different glasses, and it's a time-lapsed video, and in that you have just what I call nothing, like the steak and like water, right? And then you have the steak and the different probiotics, and how over time, you have this time-lapse video, one of them gets digested by the probiotics and the other one doesn't. And I the whole time I was eating my steak and lunch today was thinking about how it's sitting in my stomach, and I'm like, I gotta get these products by Wade's company right away, because all I can think about is how the steak is now sitting in my stomach as we talk. But you can go check it out at healthywithheather.com. So I'm curious if you want to start there. Was that your first product, the probiotic?
Actually, it was. We started out with 2 key products, and that was enzymes and probiotics. And if it's okay with you, I'll explain how digestion works. So most people, you start with chewing your food. Everybody knows that, right? And then what happens, the food travels to the upper cardiac portion of the stomach. So a little science here. I'll try and be really brief. The first 30 to 60 minutes, the enzymes that are supposed to be present in the food, and all living organisms have enzymes, are supposed to break the food down. But here's mistake number 1 that humans make. Humans cook their food. We're the only species on the planet that cooks the food. So if a shark eats the seal, it gets all the raw enzymes. If the snake eats the mouse, it gets the enzymes. If the cow eats the grass, it gets the enzymes. And the enzymes are a chemical that handles everything from thinking to blinking. Over 25,000 different enzymes in your body, and they diminish over time. And that's very much why you can run really fast and feel really bouncy and lots of energy when you're 10, and you feel a little tired and a little slower and not quite so quick when you're 40. So our body has to produce enzymes. And when we produce enzymes, this has a massive metabolic cost. And going back to your story, when you're feeling that kind of tired breakdown, and that, the afterwards, the gain is that the bodybuilding diet with a high protein content, it boosts metabolism high because you're spending all this energy trying to digest your food. And as soon as you're done the contest, right, you're like, man, your body innately says, I don't want to do that. So what do you want? Sugar, you want ice cream, you want something easy to digest.
Hamburger, pizza.
Yeah, right? You want all these other things. And so your body is trying to accommodate, to reclimate it back to a more natural and easier way, because it's using all this energy to get this food, and it's not much calories. So that's the first stage. And then what happens after the food meets hydrochloric acid inside your stomach, and you don't have a bowl of acid sitting there, your body can tell the difference between water and food. That comes in and starts disinfecting and breaking the particles down and changing the pH. And then it exits the stomach. Your body adds a little bit of minerals to it to buffer the acids. Otherwise, that's why people get they get gastritis, acid reflux. Acid reflux actually happens because you don't have enough acid in your body. The esophageal sphincter, which is on the top of the esophagus, is triggered by when enough acid comes in for hydrochloric acid. And if you don't have enough, it stays open and it splashes up. So it's
almost like give the body more acid, that will go away.
It's weird, but that is the true. And that's why hydrochloric acid is now becoming a very go-to treatment for people who have acid reflux, as opposed to the pharmaceutical industry, who's giving people antacids and proton pumps. And those proton pumps, if you look at the research, they're supposed to be used for 4 to 6 weeks. And they have all sorts of complications that happen on it, because if you don't have hydrochloric acid, you can't kill the bugs that are coming into the system, and those bugs start running wild in your digestion, and they take over the good probiotics, because you have in the last part of digestion. I kind of went on a tangent there because I get so excited about this, but you get into the intestinal tract and you've got 10% good, 10% bad, and 80% opportunists. And what I mean by that, there's about 500 species, anywhere from 250 to 500 species of bacteria in your body. There's more bacteria in your body than there is cells in your body, like some say 5 times, some say up to 10 times. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is, we live in a culture that's antibiotic, it's antibacterial, and we don't get bacteria like we used to from a farm. You eat the carrot out of the ground and stuff like that. You get it, it's all been disinfected and sterilized, and it's been blasted with chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, which kill bacteria. They kill enzymes. They destroy all those things. And what happens is now you're getting denatured foods. You don't have your bacteria things. You don't have enzyme things. You're spending all this energy, and you start to age and degenerate. So getting the right probiotics and the right enzymes inside your body, and especially if you're on the older side, adding a little HCl will also help as well. And then that gets so you can assimilate and utilize the food that your body needs. Mm-hmm. This gives you more energy. This holds you so you don't have to spend so much of your metabolic enzymes to break down food. I call it the turkey dinner syndrome. We've all had the turkey dinner where we ate it so much.
Yeah, and you're exhausted and tired. Yeah. And I never understood that. I do not understand. Why is it every turkey day we're all exhausted on turkey? I don't get that. Because if I go right now and have a turkey club sandwich, Panera or whatever, I don't get tired.
Right.
So
but it's
what
just,
is that? Is it like
here's
what, like baste them in with stuff or what?
Well, no, here's what happens, right? I mean, let's face it. Turkey dinner is one of the wonderful American traditions on the planet. It's fantastic, right? I mean, the mom, pa, grandma, the family, everybody gets around. You have Thanksgiving dinner, you have Christmas dinner, that sort of stuff. And you go in and you have the potatoes and the gravy and the things and the slabs of turkey, and then it's so good. You have another helping and some cranberry. Then grandma brings out the pie, and you're like, I'm gonna have a, and then it's the mad dash to the living room is who gets the couch, and other people laying on the floor and passing out.
Everyone's passed out. Yeah, like the weirdest thing. Because
you've eaten so much food, is that your body's enzymatic production has to go and shut down your brain function, shut down all your energy functions to go in and break down this food this massive food. So there's massive metabolic work. So what you're seeing is an extreme situation that gives you an illustration of how much energy it takes to break down, digest, and utilize your food. And our body's ability to do that diminishes over time as we age. And that's why people start running into more digestive issues, constipation, acid reflux, bloating, gas, all of these different symptoms that come up And people go, I'm still my same weight, but I got this bloat and I don't know why. Well, it's because your body can't break down and digest that food because you don't have the right bacteria, you don't have the right enzymes inside your body.
I have a question. This is me asking this because over a period of the last 10 years, 2 friends of mine, guy friends of mine, who I consider pretty healthy guys, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they get gout. Is it gout?
Gout.
And I'm like, what? You got what? How the heck did you get gout? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what? Now, one guy, I know he has a really bad diet. I'm not going to say his name, Troy. And the other guy, he's probably not listening, but the other guy, I don't know what his diet was, but he was like really into health, I thought anyway. And all of a sudden, like, he busts out and he's like walking on a cane. He's like 41. And I'm like, what are you walking on a cane for? Did you hurt your ankle? He's like, no, I gout. I'm like, what? And I was curious. I bet you, I'm guessing that it has something to do with their digestive.
Proteolytic digestion usually is related to protein. Just so you know, there's 3 main digestive enzymes. Okay. Protease, which breaks down protein, amylase, which breaks down carbohydrates, and lipase, which breaks down fats. Where we see the most common occurrence of issues in North Americans, particularly because we have a way higher protein diet than any other race or any other culture. And what typically happens in the areas of things like gout is that people lose the ability to break down proteins, and these undigested proteins start floating around in the system and start altering the blood pH and increasing acidity, and it actually affects oxygen uptake. And then that starts triggers where gout can come over. And then what happens, that oftentimes things like alcohol or sugar will trigger, because as you start to deplete your enzyme overall pool, according to Dr. Edward Howell, who wrote a book called Enzyme Nutrition, it starts cascading into other areas. People get skin conditions. So for example, people who have eczema or had a lot of acne and things like that, oftentimes, you put them on a lot of lipase and those will correct. And people who have blood sugar issues, amylase is usually something that can really assist in that. And even diabetics oftentimes notice a massive improvement, and they need a lot less insulin when they're on a quality enzyme. Okay.
And by the way, I'm going to give you the URL again one more time. It's Healthy with Heather. And there's a lot of H's in there. So yes, there's double H's, triple H's. That's Healthy with Heather. Go check out what we're talking about. He also has an awesome health course. Okay. That he talks about this. So if this is like overwhelming for you, don't worry. This is recording. You can check us out on YouTube as well as Spotify and iTunes, but also he has a health course. So go check that out at Healthy with Heather. There's a lot of H's here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So we're now on. Now, do you sell enzymes as well as probiotics?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we actually have an enzyme formulation. We have a hydrochloric acid formulation, and we have a probiotic formulation. And then part of one of the things that we do as a company, I'm a philosophy-oriented person first. And that is, we provide the insight, the backing, the information, so people can learn in simple, easy format, 5-10 minute video, watch what's going on, find out, okay, I've got acid reflux. Well, I just go to here's our naturopathic doctor, explains why that's happening, explains the things that you can do, and what are the products that you can take inside of that. So they don't have to go off to some other place. They can get it all in the comfort of their home, and we just ship it right to them.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So tell me more about this one piece about the naturopathic doctor.
Yeah. So on our staff, we have my co-author of Staying Alive in a Toxic World, Katrine Valinsky, who is an ND in Arizona. And she's my personal naturopathic doctor. And we've been friends for years. And she had to overcome a lot of challenges herself in regards to this. And so she's very passionate about the topic of detoxification and what we're doing in the world. And so what I did is I brought her into the studio, and I literally interviewed her on virtually every digestive issue you could possibly imagine. And I just ask her the questions, and she explains from her clinical experience and from her scientific expertise in a way that we can understand, is what you need to do, how you need to approach it, and what are the products that you can use in order to help you in conjunction with the diet that's going to support that condition.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. I'm throwing this out at you, and feel free to throw the ball back.
Sure.
But so in the world of probiotics and enzymes, and we're talking a lot about that in digestive, but I'm going to kind of move and ask you, does the digestive system have anything to do with the hormones. Okay. So testosterone, progesterone, that's something that when I was going through the bodybuilding world, I was doing bioidentical testosterone, bioidentical progesterone, DHEA, things like this. And of course, a lot of people around me were doing non-bioidentical. Okay. And when they got off of that, there was a lot of problems. So I guess my question is there a correlation between our hormones and, having our body just naturally create the hormones and our digestive system? Are they just completely separate?
No, this is what's probably the most fascinating topic that is being expanded rapidly. And that is the interrelation between these bacteria who live, we are essential to our life, and some obviously compromise our health. These bacteria that live in our intestinal tract and directly connect into our nervous system. And that can put us into fight or flight. So let's say we're overstimulated with a bacteria, or let's like candida. That's a good one that a lot of people suffer from, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now we've got a candida overgrowth, what hooks into our nervous system, that is wanting us to eat more sugar. It actually has been demonstrated it starts to control brain function and makes us want to eat more sugar or eat products that are going to accelerate the candida. The bacteria are actually making you go to the fridge. Now, what happens is that alters our body's defense mechanisms. And so we can have an adrenaline cortisol response, which will damage testosterone levels or hormone levels. And particularly in women, I think they're even more sensitive because with estrogen and, as they change in age, and also they tend to drop into fight or flight very quickly. Mm-hmm. And that can really upset the estrogen balance. And then also we have all these plastics in the world. So we're having massive exogenous estrogens, that's plastic or estrogenic compounds from outside the body that are coming into the body, which is also throwing off that. And so our ability to break down digestion, utilize what we're doing with enzymes and probiotics directly correlate with what we choose for food, and then what's our hormone response inside the body. And of course, staring into blue lights, like the computers and all these lights all the time and all these things that we do now has altered our biochemistry significantly.
Like I'm doing right now.
Yeah, like most of us do today. So we haven't adapted to the rapid change in technology because humans have been around a lot longer than the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. The hormone conversations, we could go there for a long time. Right, the bioidentical hormones or the testosterone, especially in the bodybuilding world, it's very I don't know how to say it. They use a lot of drugs. There's steroids or different kinds of things that to make themselves look that way. I think that you said it earlier quite well, that most of them they look amazing on the outside, but not healthy inside, not healthy internally body. So that's kind of interesting. So let's talk about non bodybuilders here. Who in what age should you start taking enzymes and probiotics? Right. And then the next question of that was the age, who's this best for, kind of thing. But the other thing to consider is myself, and I was just sharing this with you in the green room last week when we were talking, is that I just had an infection and they put me on 2 antibiotics. I didn't want to do it, but it was kind of like, you got to do it. So I did it. And of course I've been let's get some probiotics in there and things like that. So, what can you do as a person, just non-bodybuilder, just not, they don't work out. Maybe they just want to be healthy. What can you do with, I guess, what do you do? That's a bad question, but what do you do?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do. And, I always say that you can't supplement your way out of a poor diet or poor eating habits. But sometimes you can take supplements that will improve your eating habits. And that's what a lot of people don't recognize. So let's talk about where we are in the world today first. I think we have to recognize what's happened to humanity over the last 2 or 3 generations. After World War II, there was a release of a lot of chemical weapons, like the weapons that make bombs, were then put into our ground, which increased yield by creating fertilizer. Okay. And what it did is it grew bigger plants. And we also moved to monoculture. And I'm going to get to why this is really important to understand where we are as humans. The monoculture growing, what that did is it decreased protein content in food because our plants, because they were growing more rapidly, they had to convert protein into enzymes in order to grow the food, and they were grown on mineral deficient soil. So the nutrient quality of our food dropped dramatically. 1900, wheat was 90% protein, and today it's less than 7%. In fact, that's US Congress actually said in 1900, we were concerned about the degradation of wheat. That's why people a few hundred years ago could live on loaves of bread, and nobody could live on a loaf of bread now.
Yeah, sure.
You just want more because there's nothing in it. So what that's led to is the food that we're eating today is so nutrient deficient and so enzyme deficient, and it's been so chemicalized that we don't have any the bacteria that grandpa and grandma got when they were kids, is that now our body is forced to degenerate, to accelerate or use up its enzymatic reserves that it would use for everything else in order to break down food. What does that leave us? Well, according to Dr. Edward Howe, who wrote the book Enzyme Nutrition, he actually predicted the advent of all these genetic diseases and infertility rates in humans in the 40s because he was able to take various species of animals and feed them an enzyme deficient diet. And by the third generation, they lost the ability to procreate. They had strange sociological behaviors. They started getting all these diseases. And guess what? That's exactly where we are on third generation since World War II.
Autism's up,
Yeah.
I mean, majorly, fertility, majorly down. I mean, that's huge. That's a big one right now too. Autism as well, but.
Yeah. I mean, we went from 1 in 40,000 diagnosis to like less than 1 in 100 in 2 generations. That's not genetics, folks. Your genetics can't cultivate. And now that's the cultivation of epigenetics, et cetera, and all that sort of stuff. So where does it start? Well, it starts that anybody that is feeling any kind of discomfort in their digestive system, if you're sitting and having a meal at any time and you're feeling bloated or you're feeling gassy or you go time without going to the bathroom regularly, it should be like a pound in, a pound out. If you have acid reflux, if you find your skin is not at its optimal levels, well, guess what? Chances are you are not absorbing and utilizing your food and you're not eliminating your toxins. So that would be the first person. Anybody that has done an antibiotic treatment, and I'm not here to say be against antibiotics. They save lives, and most of us are here because
you need to do it. I was stuck.
You just got to do it. It's an antibiotic. Take them, get it over with, and as soon as you get off it, you have got to pound probiotics for the next 90 days and get your digestive system backwards. Or guess what? You're setting yourself up to come back again with another thing. And that's what happens with a lot of people who get on that cycle is they're over and over and over again. We're using bacteria agents or antibiotics that are 1,000 times more powerful than they were 40 years ago because they need that strength for them to work. And that's why we have antibiotic resistant bacteria strains that people are, flesh eating disease. And one of my friends, Dr. Horst Filzer, has a wound healing clinic in Arizona. And he said, as he put the first stent in the body, and he said, surgery, most of the cases of illnesses, challenges from surgery or death from surgery is not from the surgery. It's from the complications of the surgery, things like infection and stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, you want to get your system built up. You want that immune system strong. And the probiotics is the first line of defense for everybody. And we give them to kids. We give them to grandparents. You just change the dosage. It's like 1 cap for kids. And it's 4, like up to 4 caps maybe for an adult. And what's interesting, kids that do this, they're hanging out with their other kids, and the other kids got runny noses, and the other kids are getting sick, and these kids don't.
Healthy with Heather, go check it out, healthywithheather.com. And he has an awesome health course there, as well as the probiotics and enzymes. I want to ask you a question. So my mom passed away in the last 4 years at a very young age of 67. And because she went into the hospital and never came out. Okay. So she went to the hospital for bronchitis, ended up getting bronchitis and the flu, and then bronchitis, the flu, and the staph infection. So all from being in the hospital. All right. Okay.
Yep.
So it was one of those things like once you go in the hospital, let's make sure you get out, but sometimes you don't. And she actually ended up getting a staph infection, ended up in like the bubble thing for 2 weeks. Yeah. And then they released her. Yeah, they released her and came back, and I happened to be out of town. My mother's a strong mom, so like the whole time when she's in the hospital and she's in this bubble, I would call her and go, "Mom, I'm gonna come visit you," and she's like, "Don't come, I'm in a bubble. Just stay home." You know what I mean? She didn't want us to come.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna do? Just look at me through a bubble? Like, okay, fine. I'm just like, I'm thinking about you. I don't know what to do. She's like, "Don't come here. You might get something." So she was very mad, like, just stay away. And they released her, and within 24, 48 hours of her being home and released, she was found dead at her house.
Wow, that's
And
heavy.
yeah, it was very heartbreaking because we didn't know when she was going to get released, and then like she gets released while my sister and I are out of town, and then we're kind of like checking on her, and then we get a call from a neighbor, and it's kind of like we're clear that it was because of the staph infection, and I think a lot of it. I remember a few months before she came from a different generation, and she believed whatever the doctor said,
Sure.
So I remember going to her home about 2 months before this all went down, and I remember being in her like kitchen area. I counted 15 medications she was
Wow.
on.
Yeah.
And who am I to say, her daughter, to say, "What are you doing with all this stuff?" She's like, "Well, the doctor said," and her father was a doctor, and I'm not dissing on my mom, but it's a different generation that whatever the doctor said, "Oh, I have a symptom from the medication. Well, let's give you another medication for that symptom. Oh, now I have this symptom." Next thing you know, the girl's on 15 medications. I'm not surprised that Shane passed away. This is crazy. And the point is that sometimes you do have to take antibiotics. I had to recently, and it's like I barreled through the dang thing. Like, let's do this, and then like as soon as I was done that day, I'm taking probiotics, or I'm taking probiotics. I want to clear that system out. So I think it's really important what you're saying right now, that we do live in a toxic world. You really can't get away from it. Even if you live in a jungle somewhere, you live in a toxic world. So how do we start to combat that now? Or maybe we're listening to someone already has fibromyalgia, which by the way is made up, but anyway, and how do people combat that if they're already now listening to their MD, or they're already on a ton of different pharmaceutical drugs?
Well, first and foremost, you have to realize is that, and I'm not here to diss medical doctors. They have a very difficult job, but it doesn't matter how smart you are or how long you went to school. You only learn what you were taught. And the average medical doctor gets less than 3 credit hours of nutritional training, and they get absolutely no training in nutraceuticals or alternative metals healing, which have existed way before our current medical model, thousands of years. Chinese medicine, Hindu medicine, where a lot of this stuff, emerged from India and China. So I find it ironic that the new kid on the block now dictates everything, and they go through an education system which is designed to push those ideas down, and they just are simply ignorant to the topic. It's like my friend Horst, who is a wonderful guy. He holds people's hearts in his hands. Now, Horst, as I tell people, I said, listen, if you got a heart surgery, you don't want me helping you out. You need Horst to go in there. But as soon as Horst is done, you do not want Horst advising you on your diet and what you're supposed to eat. You come see me. Right. And it's the right expert for the right person. So as a person in the world today, they have to recognize, number one, the doctor isn't there to keep you healthy. The doctor is to treat the symptoms of the lifestyle that you created. So it all comes down to your own personal lifestyle. The doctor's doing the best that he can. The naturopathic doctor does the best they did. Your coach, your dietitian, whatever it happens to be, they're all doing it. But the onus comes down to me, myself, and what I do on a daily basis. And if I'm compromised, or if I'm not feeling the way that I would like to feel, or looking the way I'd like to look, I have to take responsibility for what's going into my body and what I'm doing on a daily basis. And the foundation of that is, can I assimilate and utilize the food that I'm eating? And can I eliminate the waste? And if I can't do that, if I'm not going to the bathroom regularly, if I'm getting the bloat, if I'm getting these little symptoms, that's a sign that's telling me I need to do something. Or if I'm gaining weight rapidly, that's a sign that I need to do something.
Yeah.
And the doctor can't help you in those areas. They're not an expert. So you need to get an ND on your thing. You need to get a coach or a trainer or whatever it happens to be to start you on the right path. And nowadays, there's a lot of information. That's why we created the course. And for anyone that gets any of the products here that you're talking about, they get the course. We give it. Well, we're going to give the $300 course that explains all these things that you can do. So step by step, pace by pace, the things that we've done with over 15,000 clients to help them experience awesome health.
Oh my God, I love that. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
well, there we go. Yeah. Healthywithheather.com. You'll get the awesome health course, as well as you'll have an opportunity to get their probiotics, which is P3-OM probiotics. I had no idea. That's really awesome. So I wanted to kind of move into one other thing as we kind of wrap up, and that is, and I shared with you earlier in the green room, and actually the green room also at the beginning of this call, about two girlfriends, that are kin to me, and they're in their 40s, early 40s, and they both have cancer. And I noticed that you work with the Anti-Cancer American Institute. So I'm curious if what you can talk about there in the world of cancer and not. And I understand it's kind of a touchy subject, but as a woman who is literally sandwiched between two other women who both had double mastectomies and, with breast cancer, with breast cancer. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm a little don't know how to talk about it, because one of them told me they don't have breast cancer. The doctor said they have the genes to get it, so they got a double mastectomy. And I'm a little what? But I'm just their girlfriend and neighbor. My job is I can't tell them what to do. And the other one said the exact same thing. But to me, if someone goes, that I might have the genetic code for cancer, I'm not whacking off my babies. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing it. So I'm a little concerned by that. I have no clue. I can't talk about it because I wasn't in the room with them and the doctor, but I feel like there's some kind of something happening with that in today's world, where it's almost like a cancer patient. Again, I'm speaking about just generalizing. A cancer patient is so profitable, okay, that any moment there's a little bit of potential, there's a conversation about getting everything fixed. Angelina Jolie was one of the first ones to do that. So I just kind of wonder if you could talk about that at all. If you can't, I respect that as well.
I'm happy to talk about it. And first, we'll do the regular caveat. We're not here to treat, diagnose, or suggest any cures for anyone that talk with your medical professional and the expertise. However, what I will say is this. Everybody's life has been touched by cancer. Literally 1 in 2 people are going to get cancer in their lifetime. It's something. But I'm going to give people a little history lesson first, and then I'm going to get to the topic. So bear with me on this. At the turn of the century, there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Koch, Koch, who could only find in all of America 2 cases of lung cancer. At that time, over half of the adults in America smoked. Yet he could not find lung cancer. In the 1950s, chemicals were added to nicotine and tobacco smoking, which altered the effect of it and started leading to lung cancer. And then, of course, that, no one knew that. And then 70s, it started happening, and so on and so on. And what we have found in cancer research, and that's coming to the forefront, the guys like Ty Bollinger and Truth About Cancer down there in Austin is talking a lot about it. The Anti-Cancer Institute, American Anti-Cancer Institute, which I work with, which I've been very blessed to do that. Seeing when my sister died of this, my grandmother died of this, my grandfather died of this, I got a bunch of relatives that all this. So I was I'm very passionate about this. And it seems that the increase in toxicity, the chemicalization of the world, is creating more and more cancers in the world. And the reality is the best way to deal with cancer is not to get it in the first place.
Of course.
The second best thing to recognize, if you do have cancer, it goes back to if you're overweight or you have a condition, is to accept full responsibility for that and say, you know what? My lifestyle choices up to this point has contributed, with my individual genetics, has contributed to me contracting this disease. So whether I go through a medical route or I go through an alternative route, or whether I don't do anything, or some combination of the two, alternative and as they call it, clinical or traditional marketing, or which is not, or medical treatment, conventional medical treatment. At the end, let's say I survive that treatment. Let's say I go through chemotherapy, I go through radiation. At the end, if I don't change my lifestyle, I'm going to get it again.
Right.
Because we've already determined that. So to me, it makes sense to let's do everything that I can in my power to overcome this. And there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Gonzalez who used high levels of enzymes. It's been well documented, over 14,000 cases of people that was able to do that. Proteolytic enzymes are very important in that process. And he had a lot of history, and a lot of other people. My mentor had the same situation. And so that was one stage of it, to get the undigested protein out of the system and to enhance your ability to metabolize it. Number two is we were fortunate enough to have our medical doctor develop this patented probiotic. And on the US patent, it's antiviral, antiretroviral, it's proteolytic, and digests tumors. Now, I'm not saying it cures cancer, I'm not saying it digests cancer or whatever, but that's what the US patent allowable thing. That's why it can break down the steak. How a tumor works is it creates a proteolytic coating on the outside.
Okay.
That your body can't see, your immune system can't see, and that grows, and that takes a lot of energy, and that sucks. And this is a very, very layman's terms towards. There's all different kinds of cancers, and then that's what drains people out of their system. There's these cells divide and take up more resources and eventually kill you. Essentially, it's a very, very dumbed down version, and I don't want to disrespect anybody in that thing.
It's a simplified version.
Yeah.
Explain kind of what's happening. Right. I got it.
Right. So the bottom line is, if you're worried about that situation, start taking care of your diet now. Start taking your digestion, because all disease starts in the intestinal tract, in my opinion, and get that fixed. If you have one of those conditions, you're probably going to do better on a higher dosage. It certainly helps if you're doing chemotherapy and radiation, where a lot of people feel sick and nauseated and things like that. When you support your digestive system and are able to assimilate and utilize foods, it makes a lot of difference about the sickness. And I had literally thousands and thousands of people that are right about that and help. And it also helps if you're making a transition to a more natural-based diet. Let's say you've been on, bacon and hot dogs and macaroni and cheese and, Super Bowl pizza for 20, 30 years. You have to realize that you may not have the good probiotics and the enzymes capacity to break down a healthy diet. So oftentimes people will switch to it and it doesn't feel good, it doesn't taste. And these are a way to support that transition until your body kind of kicks in and gets used to the new way of eating and gets used to assimilating. Your microbiome, which is the bacteria, will change over time. And it just makes that transition so much easier while bolstering your immune system, so you don't have some of the challenges that making a rapid lifestyle change can often cause.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I was talking to one of the girls that's going through it right now, that one of my neighbors, and she actually was taking me somewhere, which I really appreciate. I said, well, how many chemotherapy sessions have you had? She said 3. I said, how many are you supposed to do? And she said 12. And I know nothing about this. It just seemed like a lot, right? I was like, wow, that's a lot, And she said, well, then I asked my doctor, do I have to do 12? And he was like, I don't know, you could do 9 too. And I kind of,
yeah.
When she said it, it was like, what is it? It's a crapshoot, like 9, 12, 10, 5, you can try that. I'm just like, did they not know? She's like, I don't know. And I said, have you had a second opinion? She's like, I don't know. Do I need a second opinion? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, believe me, I'm not a doctor at all. And I know nothing, but I just found it really interesting how she was kind of like, he thinks maybe I should do 9. Like, okay, well, there you go. But she's in the middle of this process now, and the chemotherapy, and talked about how tired she is. And, she's a flight attendant, or she's on the leave, obviously. And I asked her, do you think it has anything to do with being a flight attendant? I mean, you are up there 35,000 feet, a lot, and there's a lot of things going on up there.
Radiation.
Yeah, radiation.
Poor air.
Really bad air and a ton of people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, I don't know, and it was just interesting conversation, because I think the common person, we don't know exactly what causes it, right? Both women that I know are, like I said, early 40s, not married, no kids, and healthy, generalized speaking. And then bam, it's just kind of like this thing that just hits them. And then there's all these questions that get sparked up, and I think it freaks people out, freaks kind of me out in the background of like, I'm pretty healthy. I think I'm pretty healthy. I think I do the right thing, but then you never know. You kind of in this dance of what am I doing correct or not? So I just kind of wanted to people aware. I don't have the answers, but I really highly suggest you go to healthywithheather.com and get this advanced, awesome health course. Okay, because he has done the research and talked to people, and he has the course for you so you can actually understand this, because it's about understanding what's best for you and your situation and your loved ones, because we all want to be here as long as we possibly can with our loved ones. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And that's why we did it, because, I ran into the same problems over and over and over and over with people. You get a diagnosis or whatever the health condition is. It could be, a bacteria infection. It could be, a digestive issue. It could be the big C, and the various stages of shock and panic. And then, I guess I better do. Number one, go get at least 3 medical opinions if you get a diagnosis. Don't just trust one. People make mistakes all the time. Number 2, go find yourself a naturopathic doctor that has this. And one of the videos that I talk about in the Awesome Health course is assembling your Jedi Council. Like if you look at anybody that's making life decisions, whether it's government or military or corporations or, tight family units, you bring everybody together on the thing, and you hear out, and you come up with a strategy and a plan, as opposed to just radically just doing whatever goes off and just living off fear and ignorance. Fear and ignorance is always a challenge. And today it's not necessary. There's all kinds of people. You're going to get a mix mash of questions and a mix match of opinions. You have to recognize that. But at least you can kind of see what your options are and then come up with a game plan that makes sense for you, that you can feel comfortable with, and have the most chance of being successful in overcoming whatever the challenge is, whether it's losing weight or whether it's dealing with a life-threatening disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been extremely helpful. I really appreciate you and everything that you've had to go through in your family and your life to be here to explain this and share this with everybody else. So everyone, please go check out healthywithheather.com, and you will go check out, you'll see who Wade is, his work, everything that we'll be talking about today, as well as his awesome advanced health course. So go check that out at healthywithheather.com. Thank you again, Wade, for being here. I really appreciate you. Last thing you want to share? Any other place you want to tell people to go?
Yeah, I will just say this one thing, and that is that first, thank you for having me on the show. But more importantly, if you're there and anything of these resonated with you, go check out the links, check out the courses. It's 5 to 15-minute videos on virtually every topic that you can imagine that you'd have questions for. It's very easy to understand, and that way that you can feel comfortable about decisions that you're making, or where I found that research, or where you can go to learn about these things. Because once you have that confidence about your decisions, it's so much easier to make the choices in your life. And that's one of the things that I really am passionate about, is educating people so that they can make the choices. Because we didn't know any of this stuff when my sister got sick. Yeah. We didn't have any other options. We didn't know where to go. We didn't know how to ask questions. We didn't know any of that stuff. And so each and every person that comes up with challenges in their health, whatever that happens to be, we cover it in that course. And it's simple. It's easy. In fact, it's awesome. That's why we call it the Awesome Health course.
The Awesome Health course. Okay, go check that out at healthywithheather.com. Everyone, this is Heather Havenwood. Thanks for being here, and have an awesome day. Be you, be real, be the boss of your life. Bye.